we'll talk you through experiential tourism and how that fits into our overall Help to Thrive. And at the end, I'll come back in and answer any questions you have and explain how you can get more involved. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Sally. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on the introduction to experiential tourism. This session is all about creating new bookable experiences across the Cotswolds area. So my name is Chris Brandt. I'm the founder and director of Unmissable England. We're the home of authentic experiences across England. We work with many different tourist boards and organisations and businesses across England, helping to create new bookable experiences that tell the story of the people and the place. Our website, unmissableengland.com, has many experiences, and here are 3 of our experience makers, the people behind the experiences. Sunita, on the left-hand side there, has an experience in the woodland down in Kent called Indian Cooking in the Forest. And on this experience, you get to cook authentic Indian dishes with Sunita in an amazing ancient woodland. Sticking with the woodland theme, we've got Linda there in the middle. She's also one of our experience makers, and she does a forest bathing experience where you get to reconnect with nature and the great outdoors. There's a fantastic tea drinking ceremony in this experience as well. It's about ditching all that digital, a real digital detox, and getting in touch with wildlife and the natural environment. From the woodland into the farmland, we've got Ed, who's another one of our experience makers. Ed's an organic farmer. He's known as the Rebel Farmer. On this experience, you get to spend time on his farm, his family's smallholding farm, and you get to harvest and seed and work on the farm and do lots of jobs that Ed gets to do as well. A really fascinating hands-on experience. You get to eat and drink produce from the farm, and there's a lovely lunch included, and also there's lots of takeaway items which you get to leave with as well. That is 3 of our experience makers. We've got 200 plus experiences now, which are bookable on our website, unmissableengland.com. Please do check it out after the webinar today. Don't worry, this is not a sales pitch. It's purely for you to have a look and get inspired to see what others are doing right across the country when it comes to experiences. We have food, drink, nature, wildlife, walking, art, creativity, you name it, you'll find it on our website. So please do check out our online website. So this session is all about the introduction to experiential tourism and how you can create your own bookable experiences. So really, experiences are about creating really special memory for your guests. So if there's only one thing you'll remember about today's session, and hopefully you'll go away inspired with lots of new ideas to develop your own experiences, but please just remember this one slide. A tourism product is what you buy, but a tourism experience is what your guests will remember. It's about creating special moments and special memories for your guests. So I've got some pictures on the screen there. You can see they're of Haddon Hall stately home in the Peak District National Park. Now this evening I'm going to be using lots of examples of other experiences elsewhere, but also the experiences that I've worked with in other projects and in other places across the country. Haddon Hall is a beautiful stately home, privately owned, and they welcome visitors all year round. But they wanted to develop a memorable experience that took visitors behind the scenes of this stately home, where you get to cook bread and bake bread in one of the oldest ovens in England. A really memorable experience, something you'll tell your friends and family and no doubt go on social media to tell. So whatever your experience is going to be or is, it does need to be special. It does need to be memorable. It needs to stand out and have that USP. So when it comes to experiences, experiential tourism isn't about saying, right, we're no longer going to be doing our activities of our walks or our workshops, and we're no longer doing tours. They're all really great products, Experiential tourism is about creating a brand new layer of product, experiences. So it enhances the offer across the Cotswolds, but also enhances the offer that you might offer in your business. So you might be doing tours as well as experiences. Excuse me. Experiences actively involve visitors to partake in activities. So it's about creating memories, but actually having experiences where guests get to do things. So there's hands-on elements. They also need to tell the story of the people there and of the place and really connect with those different stories. And through this evening, we'll come back time and time again about the people and the place and how you make that stand out in your experience. Now, I should have said at the very beginning, all these slides that you'll see this evening will be shared with you from Sally later on in the workshop. So don't feel that you have to make lots and lots of notes unless you really want to. So we'll share this with you along with the recording so you can recap at any point. Now, when it comes to designing any new experience, there are four main components. They are resources, goods, services, and the local stories and the people. So if we take them one by one, the resources, well, it is the Cotswolds, it is the landscape, it is our amazing villages and our towns, our footpaths and our bridleways and our cycle paths. It's our amazing asset we have on our doorstep. It's a national landscape with over 3,000 miles of public footpaths, and that's just in what was the A1B, the national landscape. There's plenty more all around the area. So we're really lucky here in the Cotswolds that we've got a major resource and a well-known brand as well to sell domestically and of course internationally as well. Our next component is the goods industry, and that might be you. You might be a retail outlet, you might be an accommodation provider, you might be an attraction, you might be an activities provider. So it's about you working in collaboration with others in the industry. And that service industry could be hire businesses, luggage transfer companies. You might already be a tour guide. You might be offering tours in some way as well. It's about working together and collaborating together and building experiences together. And that fourth and really important component are the local stories and the people. And that's what brings experiences together. It's the community. It's the independent businesses, it's the arts, it's the culture, it's the community around that as well. And when we bring those four components together, that's when we find really good experiences for the destination, but also for the visitor. Now, our question for you all is, who are you in this process? Are you going to be, or are you, the experience maker, the host, the provider, the leader? Are you going to deliver the whole experience and host it? Are you going to deal with bookings and the availability and contacting guests? Or, and are you looking to contribute? Maybe you run a pub, for example, and say, actually, we don't want to organize the whole experience. We don't even want to deal directly with customers and their bookings, but we want to offer an aspect within someone else's experience and offer a pub experience activity or dining. You might also be a promoter. So this works really well for the accommodation businesses that we might have on the call tonight. So if you're an accommodation business and you haven't got the resource to offer your own experience, but you want to work and collaborate with others, then you might promote the experience and say, actually, one night stay, this is an experience that you could be doing while you're staying with us as well. So you can be more than one of these things. You don't have to just choose one. You might be making and hosting an experience and collaborating with others as well. But have a think after the call this evening where you fit into the process. Now, experiences have been a big buzzword for the last 15 years or so, and the Canadians have been the big drivers behind that. So if you go to Canada or America, Australia, South Africa, the word experience means something, memorable experiences that are bookable. And the Canadians, as I say, 15 years ago, spent a lot of work in creating something called the Canadian Signature Experience Collection, which is around about 100 plus experiences on a website that you can book anywhere across the country that are extremely memorable and really standout experiences. So I'm going to use some of their theory behind how they developed their experiences in Canada. And this chart really does demonstrate the economic value of an experience. Now, experiences are fantastic for visitors. They're fantastic for a destination, but they also got to be fantastic for your business and your bottom line. Because it's all very well creating new experiences for guests and doing really great things, but it's got to have that economic value in doing so. So the Canadians came up with this model, which can be applied to any type of business. Here in our example, it's for a vineyard business. So on the chart, you'll see some grapes. So for a vineyard business, in this example, the production of grapes and the vines is really key to their business. That's what they're going to be doing day in, day out. And from those grapes, you of course make and bottle wine. So that whole production of wine and distribution is again a part of that core business. And for a vineyard business, that is what they do day in, day out. Then of course they might say, right, we're going to tap into tourism and we are going to welcome visitors onto the vineyard and we want to offer some wine tasting tours. Great, big tick, we've done tourism. And that is often where businesses who might not just be focused on tourism, it might be where they get to and think, actually, we've done it. But as we know, and what we're finding out this evening is actually there's a fourth layer, and that's experiences. So why not have an experience that joins all these things together? So when visitors come to the vineyard, it's not just about wine tasting. It's about going behind the scenes of the vineyard, meeting the owner, picking the grapes, harvesting them, looking after the vines at different times of the year, bottling the wine, labeling the wine yourself. Obviously getting to drink the wine because that's really important. But why not pair it up with local cheeses and local food? We've got some fantastic local food and produce right across the Cotswolds. Why are we not celebrating that and putting that into an experience? So when we join that all together, we've not just added economic value to the experience, we've actually added value to the visitor experience itself as well. There's so much more in that experience. So we know experiences create greater economic value. Therefore, it's better and good for your business in order to do this. And again, if you're doing that wine tasting tour, that's fine as well. That's a different product. By offering this experience, we've added more value and greater economic value to the yield as well. So, what other benefits are there when it comes to experiences? Well, we've just seen how it can potentially increase your revenue, but also it can diversify your customer base as well. So we find that people looking to do experiences might have a little bit more extra cash to do these experiences. We know internationally people are looking for them. So people from the US and elsewhere across Europe looking for these immersive experiences to book. It can also enhance not just your reputation, but the reputation of the destination. So for the Cotswolds. So the more experiences and the more great experiences we have across the region, the more reason people are going to come and stay, which is great for sustainable tourism because these experiences will be working in collaboration with independent businesses, celebrating our great food and drink, and real connectivity between those businesses as well. So it's good for the environment because also we're going to get people to stay longer in the destination and actually spend more money as well. And as I said, there's some great collaboration opportunities as well. And the more experiences we have in destination, Therefore, people are going to spend longer, not just in money terms, but in also duration as well here in the Cotswolds. So there's some really great benefits and reasons why to do experiences if you're not doing so already. But what do today's visitors want when it comes to an experience? So the word experience can be overused sometimes. So this is a little bit about language and about using the right language for the right type of product. Experiences are not workshops, courses, lessons, or a walk. Now, the reason why is because all of these things, especially the top three, workshops, courses, and lessons, very much lends itself to a local or regional offer. Those people looking to learn a new skill or to be educated in something. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you run art workshops or you're doing a creative story writing course, that's great. But it's not necessarily going to appeal to a domestic and international visitor who might be looking for a holiday experience or a day trip experience. So to change the language, use the word experience instead of workshop, course, or lesson. Now, an experience also isn't just a walk. And if you think maybe, possibly, that, oh, I do a guided walk, that's an experience, that's a guided walk. There are ways, and I'll come back to this later on in the session, how you can enhance a guided walk into an experience. And also, sometimes I hear attractions, just a few say, actually, Chris, we already run these experiences. And I say, great, what is it? Well, as soon as you walk through the gates of our attraction, your experience starts there. And I say, right, great, who's going to meet you? What do I do? What's the activity? Oh, no, everybody comes through the gate. Again, that's not an experience. It's not a bookable experience. That is an experience of a visitor. So it's very different. So it's important to distinguish between the two. So experiences should be visible, bookable, guided, available, and practical. So let me explain each of those elements. Visible. Your experiences are a product. So therefore, it should be visible on your website. It should also be visible in other places as well. So on online travel agents, OTAs, on the Cotswold Tourism website, and there's many places as possible. You need to shout about your experiences so that people can book them, which brings us on to bookability. These experiences aren't, please email us for information and we'll send you some dates. These need to be convenient and bookable for your guests. So there needs to be enough times and dates well in advance, up to a year, if not more, before the visitor actually comes and actually visits. So the bookability bit is important. And we all do that. You know, we spend our evenings maybe glancing at Netflix or the television, and then we're looking for things to buy. You know, we do it on Amazon. We don't wait for time to email somebody. We want to look at the date, we want to choose it, we want to choose the time, and we want to book it. Done, complete. And that's what visitors want when they look for experiences as well. So that whole availability is got to be convenient for the visitor. And experiences also need to be guided. They need to be guided by you, the local people, and the local business. An experience can't be done self-guided. That's a completely different thing. It's all about adding value to the experience as a local person or a local business. And finally, it needs to be practical. There needs to be hands-on element in your experience. So guests get to actually do something. They get to eat and drink or make something, paint something, draw something. There needs to be activity in the experience. And that brings me on to what's different from a classic tour and the type of experiences that we're talking about tonight. Well, in this example, I'll take you through what the difference is. So on the screen, you can see a picture of four lovely ladies. These are four Americans that have booked an experience here in the Cotswolds called Baking Scones in a Cotswold Cottage. And you can guess what they're going to do. So this is a really small group. It's in a privately owned home right in the north of the Cotswolds in Oxfordshire. And these four lovely American ladies have pre-booked the experience 6 months before traveling on an online travel agent website actually on Unmissable England. So they've booked the experience. It's £85 per person for 2.5 hours. And on this experience, they arrive at the cottage themselves. They've got a hire car. They've arrived. They meet the owner. They step into the cottage, which dates back to the 15th century. The owners have lovingly restored the cottage over 10 years or more, bringing back some of the features in the cottage. There's a picture of it there. So typical kind of thatch cottage, stonework, etc., in a small village. I must point out this is not one of your typical Cotswold villages. It's right just outside the national landscape, nearer to Banbury than it is to Stow-on-the-Wold, for example. But visitors are making, an effort to come out and actually do this experience. So they step into the house, they hear about the owners restoring it. They talk about how the flagstone floor was found under screeds of concrete and all these different things, and how the owners have restored the house. On arrival, the guests get a cup of tea in grandma's best crockery, and they get that kind of welcome there as well. Then they get to step into the kitchen using old utensils and locally sourced ingredients where possible, and they get to make the scones. So they're not here just to eat scones, they are making the scones themselves. But already this is much more than just a baking class. The experience has well and truly started by that discovery of the cottage, stepping into the cottage, hearing about the history. The owner talks about the history and the ancestry of the actual property going back to the 1800s using census information. So it brings to life lots of different stories about the house, but also about the village. So once the scones are being prepared, being baked, the group then goes on a guided walk just around the village. So the same host takes the group around. They go into a 12th century church, and just behind the church you can see a small tower. It's a remains of an old castle where the likes of James I and Charles I visited in the 15th century. So some links there to big history, which of course our international visitors, especially our American visitors, love those kind of connections. The castle was once a lot bigger. It was demolished in the 1700s by the family that lived there, and there's bits of the castle embedded throughout the village. And if you walked or drove through the village, you wouldn't know this, but this is one of the wonderful parts of the experience, that you get to find out some of the unexpected elements and stories about this. So you get to see some of the behind the scenes. And of course, once you've had that guided walk, you return back to the cottage, and then the scones that you have made yourselves are then presented with more tea, but also, of course, lots of clotted cream and jam as well, which guests just love. Each guest gets a copy, a printed copy of the recipe card. I should also say the scone recipe is a grandma's recipe card as well. So a recipe, sorry. So you get to share that recipe as well. And this experience is really, really popular. And I know the experience really well because it's actually my own experience, and this is my house where I live. And I've been doing this experience about 7 years. It all happened quite organically. I was doing these sessions and working with lots of different organizations across the country. And during all of our renovation work, we put one of our spare rooms on Airbnb, and we started getting lots and lots of American guests. And they said, "Oh, your cottage is wonderful. Can I bake something in your cottage?" And I said, "Oh, here's my grandmother's scone recipe." And I actually then realized that I had an experience myself where I am. So it's very rewarding, and it's lovely, and we get people, as I say, from all around the world. But the main things that make it different to a classic tour, going back to our question, is about the people. So on this experience and on other experiences, the people that were looking for experiences want to connect with you as the local. Now, we do hear a lot of that, like, live like a local and be a local and all that kind of thing. But generally, people really are looking for these types of experiences. They're not looking to necessarily just always go with a professional guide. They want to meet the local people. They want to see what the local people do, and they want to experience what it is like to be a local. So on this experience, people are getting to meet me. They know I'm not a chef or a baker, a professional baker. I'm a home baker. I say that in my marketing and all my information, so they know exactly what they're getting. Also, the people that you have on experiences want to tell you about their own lives back at home and the things that they do as well. So an experience is very much a two-way process as well. It's not like this where I'm just kind of speaking at you for half an hour or an hour. It's very much a communication. You're building that friendship, that relationship with your guests, and you're becoming a friend. And that's really important, and it adds value to the experience. So the people element is really important. As I said, the village I live in is not touristy at all. My neighbours scratch their head, and every time I take a group of American visitors around saying, "Chris, how did these people know about this? How do they know about your nan's scones? How do they know how to get here?" And they find it really strange. And sometimes when I first started doing this, I would kind of cringe a little bit if one of my neighbors came out and kind of, questioned my guests. But actually now, that I quite enjoy it because I saw the reaction of our guests, and they love it. They want to meet the neighbor. They want to meet the local eccentric person down the road. That all adds to the experience. So the people element is really important. Next, it's the place. Now, you don't need to open up your own homes in order to do an experience, but you do need to take people off the beaten track. You need to give them special access. We're not talking about VIP experiences. We're talking about taking people, if you're a brewery or a shop or a museum, going behind the scenes. If you're a museum, going into the archives and seeing things that most visitors wouldn't get to see. Maybe you're a brewery and you're busy doing tours during the day and you want to add experiences, then why not do it when you're closed after 5 o'clock in the evening and go behind the scenes? It's about giving people a special place and access to your experience and taking them so they feel like they're getting something different that they wouldn't normally be able to do by themselves. And the third element is the participation. It's the hands-on activity. So in my experience, it's about having that cup of tea on the welcome. It's making the scones themselves. It's coming on the guided walk, going to the church, looking at the castle, going behind the scenes, then coming back and having the scones with more tea and eating with clotted cream and the jam. So it's not just being spoken at. There's lots of activity. So your experience needs to have several different activities, whether it's eating or drinking, painting, drawing, baking, whatever it might be. It needs to have some creativity and some action in there as well. So people, place, and participation are my 3 Ps, and any experience should have those 3 Ps in them. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour across England now on some of the other experiences that I've worked with other businesses, to give you a bit of a case study, if you like, of what others are doing. But also, here are my 5 steps in creating a really memorable experience. Starting at number 1, of course, it's tell a story, and not just any story. This needs to be your story. You need to own that story. So like my experience, my scone experience, it's the story of our cottage, the work that we've done in restoring it, the people that used to live here, my nan's scone recipe I'm sharing a tour around the village. It's all my passion, my interest that I'm sharing. So I'm making a connection with the visitor, and you will need to do the same. The picture on the screen is Kevin. That's Kevin from Live Like a Roman Soldier, which is an experience that I've helped work with up on Hadrian's Wall in Northumberland National Park a couple of years ago. Kevin chooses to dress up as a Roman soldier in order to tell his story, Live Like a Roman. Even though I actually think he looks more like a Viking in that picture than a Roman soldier. So you don't need to dress up in costume in order to tell a story, but you do need to have that story that you tell through the experience. One of the reasons why Kevin chose to dress up was his product, his experience is on Hadrian's Wall. And that's a saturated tourism product place where there's so many different guided walks and activities. And Kevin wanted to stand out literally not just in the marketplace, but also in the landscape as well. So people were able to book his experience because it was different from the rest. So on this experience, he tells a story of being a Roman soldier. You, as a visitor, get to eat and drink like a Roman soldier as well. And I can tell you, the food and drink isn't that great, but it is really memorable. So whatever your story is, tell your story really well. Make sure it's got a good start, middle, and end. It's the core to any experience. And you might have lots of different elements and different strands and themes of your story, but make sure it's your story and it does connect as well. And number two, it's include everything. And this is where an experience is really different to that classic tour. There is no hidden extras or awkward moments in an experience. So if you take guests into a pub and you get to the bar and there's, you're going to have a pint of beer or a cup of coffee, there's no awkward moments where the guests are thinking, are you paying? Do I need to get my wallet out? What you've done already is you've communicated in your marketing, in the itinerary, visitors know what's included. So if that beer or that coffee or that lunch is included, you'll say so. It's not an EasyJet approach where you book the experience and it's like, oh, you want to bolt on lunch? Oh, you want to use an e-bike? It's all included. And people are looking for that value within the experience. And they're choosing experiences because they've got food and drink in them. They've got access into that museum. They've got this and that. So it's important to include things. Food and drink is really important. So that welcome cup of tea that I give all my guests on my experience makes guests feel at ease. It gives them a welcome. It also makes me feel at ease as well, because over a cup of tea, there's something about having a sit down, a cup of tea, and making people feel at ease and making people feel relaxed. And it's a good way to start an experience by offering a drink at the beginning. So we also have some really great food and drink and produce across the Cotswolds and around as well. And what not great way to actually celebrate our food and drink by actually including it in our experiences. It helps us tell a story as well, whether that's we're using Cotswolds Distillery gin or we're using local strawberries from a nearby farm. It's great to include. We're celebrating and collaborating with local businesses, but it's adding to that context of that story as well. And more people are booking experiences, as I say, if they've got food and drink included. International guests are more likely to book an experience if a meal is included in the experience, because they will trust you as the local and as the local business that you're going to have really great food. You're going to take them to a great pub or restaurant or cafe. So they don't need to worry about eating before or after the experience. That's included in the experience and it's all sorted for them. And they are happy to pay that extra more for that. You just need to make sure you've costed it out completely and you're covering those costs as well. And this isn't just about food, it's about bike hire or boat hire or access to a museum or a brewery, those types of things. Make sure if you're going to do it, include it in the cost, embed it in the cost, and add it as a part of the experience. And number three, it's the expected and the unexpected. So just like my bacon scones experience here in the Cotswolds, the UK really does lack in having some of those predictable, quintessential English and British expected experiences. Last week, I was in the Netherlands at Vakantierbeurs, which is a trade and consumer week-long travel show. And the amount of people that were asking for similar kind of baking experiences or fish and chip experiences or having a ploughman's in an English pub, all these kind of things that we will find quite typical or things that we do and not really think about it, our international visitors would love to do. And yes, they could do these things by themselves, but often they're looking for experiences that encompass these things as well. So don't be afraid to offer, you know, fish and chips, a ploughman's lunch in a pub, the expected things. Our international visitors, especially the Americans, are going to fall in love with you and want to do these things. Now, as well as the expected, also include a bit of unexpected in your storytelling and in your experience as well. And a good example of that is an experience I worked on up in the Lake District at Lake Windermere with the National Park Rangers. They have a patrol boat on Lake Windermere where the rangers go out, patrol the lake, make sure no one's speeding, make sure everyone's behaving, and they get to do some wildlife conservation on some of the islands on the lake. So we worked with the National Park Rangers to create a new experience where you get to be the National Park Ranger for the day. Now, all good experiences start from actually almost doing the job of what the local people do. One of the first experiences was be a ranger or a zookeeper for the day, and that was actually going, behind the scenes of the animals, if you like, and actually mucking out the yard and looking after the animals. And this experience with the national park that we worked with actually did very similar. So you get to be the national park ranger, you get to drive the boat, and that was a real unexpected element for people on the experience. They thought they would go on the boat. Yes, they would get to dock on some of the islands and hear about the wildlife work and the conservation work, but actually the unexpected was they drove the boat. Which was a really nice thing to create special memories in your guests, in your experiences. So think about your guests, think about adding that unexpected as well as the expected as well. And it gives a nice mix to your experience. And number 4, it's all about adding value. If you design an experience and you pop it on your website or an online shopping online travel agent website, and you read it back through, or you get feedback from visitors saying, why is that £100? I can do all that by myself. I can walk on the Cotswold Way. I can go and do that. I can go and get that lunch in the pub myself. You've got to make sure you've added enough value in that experience. Otherwise, people won't book. And if they do, they might not be extremely happy if they feel they haven't got enough value. So when you're designing your experience, all the time check in. Make sure you've got things that visitors simply can't do by themselves. And yes, that is including, that glass of wine, taking people off the beaten track. It might be your favorite footpath. It might be that, that public footpath that you know as a local, but you're taking guests on your favorite view. And you're going to interpret that view and that landscape and tell people about the history and the heritage. So already you're adding value. So the more things you can tell within your story, the more places you can go, the more places you can go behind the scenes, the more activities you can add to your experience, the more value you're adding. And that's really important because therefore you can charge more as well. So think about it all the time. How can I add value in the experience and make sure people feel that they're getting something really, really good for their money, but also something they simply can't do by themselves? And at number 5, it's keep it simple. And I can't say that enough. Often I work with businesses and they all, after this workshop, think about so many different things and add so many activities within the experience. They probably actually created about 5 experiences and not just one. So don't overload your experience with too many things or overcomplicate it. Keep your story precise and keep the activity simple as well. You want to run these as often as possible. You want to have them available as possible as well. So you don't want to make it overcomplicated. You don't want to make it bespoke either. You want to give people the options within choosing different experiences rather than saying, I'm going to give you a bespoke experience. The feeling still might feel bespoke because you've designed a really good experience with a lot of story to it. So I've just told you to keep your experience simple, and now I'm going to show you a slightly complicated experience, but it's very relevant to the business. So I'm going to take you up to the Peak District National Park now. This is Castleton, right in the heart of the peaks. And this is an experience, or a company, I should say, called the Treat Cavern Caves. You might know them as the Blue John Stone Caves in Castleton. They have been mining the caves there for generations, really famous. Blue John Stone is a particular type of stone that can only be found in this place in the whole world. So that's quite special. These guys for generations have been running tours and large groups and school groups for a very long time. So they worked with us to actually develop an experience that was different to what they would do in their large groups. So instead of 20 people or so, we took it right down to 4 or 6 people, still with 2 guides going down into the cave system, going through the mines. But now we give people an activity. They can actually carve and mine a piece of blue john stone and actually take a bit of the stone home with them as well, which you couldn't do in the large group. So already we've added value. Just a word of warning, when they take a bit of stone, it's not as big as their hand, otherwise there might not be enough for everybody, but they get a small piece that you get to take home, which is a really lovely momentum. Then they get to polish the stone in the workshop. So they go above ground and they get to polish the stone that they have carved and mined themselves. And not only that, in the workshop, they get to make their stone into a piece of jewelry, which is a really nice takeaway and a really lovely activity as well. Now, this experience is about 6 hours. A locally sourced and produced lunch is included, teas and coffees, geology and geography of the local landscape. That's all included in the experience. And the reason why this is not overcomplicated for the business is because they were doing all these elements, just not as a combined experience. So they were doing the large groups. They had a visitor shop that sold jewelry. So why not get the visitor to make the jewelry themselves? This experience retails at £135, very popular with travel trade and popular with the international market as well. So it's relevant and it's simple enough for the business there to do, but it has that nice kind of story to it, and also the activities that are quite simple for this business to do. Another reason to keep your experiences simple is that you want to be flexible. At the start of the workshop, Sally mentioned the travel trade. So when we talk about travel trade, we're talking about tour operators, destination management companies, and travel agents. That's the industry that want to kind of sell and buy experiences. And often when they come and find your experience, they might want to adapt your experience. And the reasons why is because they know their clients, they know their visitors, and not every market is the same. So they might say, actually, my visitors are looking for experiences that are in the afternoon or in the morning, or they're looking for short experiences, or they're looking for long experiences. So you need to be flexible and adaptable when designing any experience, and if you want to work with the international and domestic travel trade, so that you can actually be flexible, so you can adapt it for the relevant markets. Now, earlier on, I mentioned about walks and not experiences, but some guided walks can be adapted into experiences. And this is a really good one that we work with. This is Hills, Hops and Hampers down in Sussex. In orange there is Rich. Rich is a very experienced professional hiker and works all across the country doing big hikes and mountain walks. But this is his local patch in the South Downs National Park up on Black Down, which is one of the highest viewpoints in the south of England. And on this experience, it is a guided walk experience. But Rich then tells you some fascinating history and heritage and going through an ancient woodland. And then you get to stop in an award-winning independent microbrewery as well for a really fun guided tour and real ale tasting as well. So already there you can see it's not just a walk. You're now getting to go in the microbrewery and you're doing the beer tasting, etc. Then you get to walk through the ancient woodland, and then you get to that open view. Rich's wife has actually laid out all the picnic there using locally sourced food and drink and produced as well, cheeses and wonderful different things, English sparkling wine, and you get to sit on the picnic rug there with that amazing view, which is kind of a bit of an unexpected, lunch is coming, you're going to get something, but you get that as you walk around the corner, and then you get that amazing view. A 4-hour experience, £75, really good value and a really memorable experience. But I just wanted to show you an experience that was similar to a guided walk that has been adapted, just with those elements going to the microbrewery, having that amazing picnic, locally sourced lunch as well. So next, we're going to move on to looking at marketing and distribution. Before we do that, let's have a look at the reasons why visitors choose experiences. So this is some data from us here at Admissible England back in 2023. And these are the reasons why visitors book experiences, why they choose them in the first place. So often visitors are looking to get beneath a place. They want to learn something new. They want to connect with nature and the great outdoors. And a real big trend is improving their mental health and well-being. We're seeing a real uplift on that. They want to go off the beaten track. Now, I always say, really, in the UK, there's not many places you can actually go off the beaten track, but there are places that you can feel like you're going off the beaten track. So that's important to make people feel like that they're going away from people and having that special experience. Many people looking to immerse themselves in local culture and art. They want to share these experiences with friends and family. They want to see what we do as locals, and they want to experience that and feel like that. And we've seen a real uplift of that as well. Before COVID in 2020, Booking.com were reporting a real uplift in people globally, not just in the UK, but people globally no longer going to cities. And instead wanting to go to regional parts of countries and see more what locals were doing and have that feeling of being a local. Now, obviously, we've had COVID, and COVID changed everything when actually more people are kind of trying to visit regional destinations within a country instead of just going to the city. So we've seen that in the UK. We've seen a lot of visitors actually, maybe having 1 or 2 days in London and then coming out to the Cotswolds, going to Cornwall, going to the Lake District, and actually having a bit of a tour themselves around the country. Other reasons why people book in experiences to do something special. They want to support local independent businesses. They might want to treat someone in the visiting group. They want to understand the local history better. That's often why people are looking, to really get beneath the place. And also they want to do something that many people won't get to do. So they have that kind of really special time when visiting. And they want to obviously be shown the very best parts of a destination as well, which as a local business and as a local person as well. Now, when it comes to designing any experience, any product needs a target audience. So it's no good to say, actually, my experiences are for everyone. You need to think about actually who is your ideal customer segment. Here are a few that you can think about. Solo visitors, also known as independent traveller, our couples market, families, and those visiting with friends or family in a group. So the solo visitor, the independent visitor, is a huge proportion of those looking to book experiences. Now, they might be booking and traveling on their own, but it doesn't mean they want to be on their own. And often they book experiences so they can actually meet other people and join another group to have an experience. So if you have an experience and you only accept people booking from 2 or 3 upwards, you might actually not, people traveling on their own might not get to find your experience and they might not get to book it. So I always suggest that you start from a minimum number of 1. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to run your experience at 1, because hopefully in that time of those bookings, other people will join that group. So you might get another solo visitor, you might get a couple, you might get a large group joining that one person. So think about the independent traveller, because they are a big part of the market for experiences. Then we have our couples as well. Visit Britain, Visit England, the National Tourist Board use the terminology, pre-nesters and empty nesters. This means if they have or going to have children, it's the period before having children and therefore after as well. On average, this group of people, it's not obviously, they can travel outside of the school holidays, and they can travel more or less throughout the year as well. And they also got a bit of extra cash saved up to do these types of experiences. So this is a good target audience, the couple market, for doing so as well. And this applies domestically and internationally as well. Now, if you're thinking about families, and then obviously, it's got to be in school time and there's got to be price sensitivity around that as well. You also got to think, if you're designing an experience, how will it work if you've got one person, one independent traveler, along with a couple, and then with a family of 5? How's that going to work, the experience having that mixture? Can it work? Probably not. You probably need to design experiences at different times of the year for different audiences. So that's very broadly how to think about your target audience. You can start thinking about, is your experiences more for domestic? Is it more for international? Do you want to go for the American market, a bit like me, and really go for the things that they're looking for as well? So really spend some time after the session this evening thinking about who your segment is. And we've got a lot of information from Visit Britain, which we will be sharing, and I'm sure will be shared with you through our travel trade work as well, looking at different target audiences here in the Cotswolds, international target audiences as well. So that can help you focus a little bit more. So just to recap on some of those things we've just spoken about, creating an experience. Number one, that overall story, making sure it's your story of your experience, making sure you have that in your experience. Think about and tell guests what they're going to do. Make sure it's included in your price. So if you've got a bike, people go on a bike, make sure you've costed that out and make sure you're shouting about that in your marketing and inside your itinerary. And make sure you're checking in all the time to think, can visitors simply do this by themselves? Hopefully not. Therefore, you've added enough value. And also think about who your experience is for, and you might have different versions at different times of the year, at different price points as well for different audiences. And at number 5, make sure that guests have received that value as well. Check in with guests, run your experiences, test them out with friends and family and with your local peers as well, and get that feedback. If they're saying this is the best time they've had on their holiday, this is the best time they've visited in the UK or Europe, what have you, you know you're doing something really well. So make sure you're getting that feedback about the value. And at number 6, think about how your guests how you want them to feel at the end of it. We started the webinar earlier on about talking about memories. You want people that they, have these amazing memories when they come and do your experience. So think about those emotions that you're going to actually be driving through your experience in order for them to have those special memories that they'll take away as well. Now, like any product, your experience does need to be costed out. So you need to get a pen and paper or a spreadsheet, and you need to work out every single cost there is in running your experience. And that is your time, any staff time, if you've got staff, if you any food or drink, your local marketing, your leaflets, transportation, if you're using any vehicles, if you your time actually taking the booking, managing the booking, if you're using the booking system, all those things need to be costed. Any licensing or insurance, public liability insurance, obviously, things like that, cost it out per person and then per your average group size, group of 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. You need to have those figures in order to work out what your profit margins are going to be. I also say at this point, if you're going to be working with travel agents, online travel agents, tour operators, etc., you need to have a cost line in this sheet on your list for exactly that. There's no good designing your experience and saying it's £100. Oh, I'm going to sell it on a travel agent website or a tour operator website or an online travel agent website, and I've got to add 20%. Well, I'm going to add that on now. Do it now. Every product has a distribution and marketing cost. A tin of baked beans isn't just, on sale in Tesco's and then they whack on the extra percentage in Tesco's or Morrison's or Waitrose. It has that cost built in, ready for distribution. And it works exactly the same in tourism, and it works exactly the same for experiences. So I always encourage businesses to put in 20% wherever they distribute and sell their experiences. Now, if you get a booking direct, you're going to get that extra 20%. Remember, it's 20% of nothing, because when you pay, when you take a booking on these online travel agents or a tour operator, the commission, is only on booking. You're not actually paying any fees up front as well. So spend some time on pricing. Look at what your competitors are selling at. That might be a local competitor. It might be a similar experience elsewhere in the country or elsewhere. Do a bit of research on your experience and what your pricing is and what it should be as well. Now, these experiences are all really great, but they do, as I say, need to be bookable. They're no good just hidden on your own website. They need to be distributed, but they also need to be available. So experiences are not just one-off events or things that you can run just, for example, on the third Thursday of each month in the summer only. If you're doing that, I probably recommend that you do events or couple, one-off event activities. Experiences need to be regular. They need to be available. So on average, in example, 2 or 3 times a week across all the seasons. People visit the Cotswolds all year round. They're not just looking for experiences and activities in the summer. Now, 2 or 3 times a week sounds a lot if you're a small business, but that doesn't mean you're going to be running your experiences 2 or 3 times a week. It means it's when they're available. So let me give you an example. For my experience, I run my scone making experience on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. This is my full-time job working at Unmissable England. So it's not my intention to run my experience on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But if someone books on the Friday, and I've got, say, a couple that books, I will then turn off my Saturday and my Sunday bookings for that weekend, and I will funnel my other booking or bookings to that Friday. And I really recommend that you do that, because you want to offer up as much as availability as possible, but you also want to do it in as long an advance as possible. People are booking, as I say, longer in advance. They're booking for next year. I've got bookings coming in on experiences on Unmissable England for September this year, but also inquiries for next year. People asking questions as well. So that is good for you as a small independent business, because you can plan in these dates long in advance. And as soon as you get a booking on one of the days, you can take the other days round and then funnel the bookings into that date where you've already got some bookings. So there's a bit of admin, a bit of work to do around this, and that's something you need to factor in as well. It's all very well being bookable, but you will need to do a bit of admin and manage those bookings to get the best from them as well. But importantly, your availability is your visibility. So you need to make sure you've got enough availability in your experience, in offering your dates and your experience as well. Sometimes with online travel agents, your experience won't necessarily show up on a website if you haven't got dates and times embedded in that availability. So it is really important. There are various different ways to distribute your experience across the different distribution industry, in tourism industry. I'm not going to go too much in detail about this because we have got lots of support and advice throughout the program, but I just wanted to give you a very broad summary of how it kind of works. So you've got two charts there, one with FareHarbor, one with TXGB. TXGB stands for Tourism Exchange Great Britain. It's a company that's endorsed by Visit England, Visit Britain, and both FareHarbor and TXGB are very similar. They're a back-end technology where you put in your experience information, your content, your photos, your data, your dates and times, and then you can then sign up to other online travel agents like TripAdvisor, Expedia, Booking.com, Unmissable England, etc. And also you can sign up to websites like Cotswold Tourism and other tourism websites as well as having a booking widget on your own website. And what that means if you use TXGB or FareHarbor is that you put all the information in once, all the bookings are managed centrally, so you don't need to worry about changing dates. Say if somebody books on TripAdvisor and then somebody books the same date on your website, you've not got any of that confusion. That's all being done centrally through the two different one of the systems. Each TXGB and FareHarbor and other distributions channel technologies, they all have a commission. These are both actually set at the same commission of 2.5%. And so that's quite low, but that's not the only cost. So depending on where you then opt in, and it is opting in, you don't have to work with every single online travel agent, but you might want to work with a couple. They all have different commissions. So TripAdvisor is the biggest in the world. They own a company called Viator, which is the biggest experience provider in the world. Really, really big in North America, in the USA in particular. That's where Americans go to book their experiences. They won't necessarily know that you have a website. They won't necessarily know what to Google, but they will trust and they will know Viator. They will know TripAdvisor. So therefore, TripAdvisor has quite a big commission of 25%. But again, instead of adding that on now, think about your pricing and think about your costs. So go back to your costs list and put that 25% in, put that 2.5% as well. It might increase the cost of your experience, but you need to do that ahead instead of doing it after as well. 25% is the highest you will pay with any tour operator or travel agent. You shouldn't be spending or taking that kind of slice of commission anywhere else. So the smaller they are, the less commission as well. But this is what will give you traction. This is what will give you that exposure globally to a global audience that's coming to the Cotswolds, and that's how they're going to book. Also, I popped on Airbnb experiences there at the bottom. That's just to say that Airbnb experiences doesn't work with any channel manager or technology. So you won't find them on TXGB, you won't find them on FareHarbor. They're a standalone website. The reasons behind that is that Airbnb experiences like Airbnb visitors on Airbnb experiences because they insure you and insure guests on those experiences. So if you have an Airbnb, you're on Airbnb and then you sell through your own website or you sell through somewhere else and you mix those together, Airbnb doesn't like that. Not to say that people don't do that, but it's recommended that you don't. So there's an awful lot in distribution, and that's why we have one-to-one business support for some of you, which Sally will come on and tell you about shortly. It is a complex environment if you're new to it, but as I said, that's why we have the support within the business program. So just to summarize on some of the things we've spoken about this evening and some of the steps that you might want to take if you're going to go down this route. Really importantly, insurance, public liability insurance. If you're doing any of these things, you need to make sure you're speaking to your insurance company or your broker and getting the latest information from them. And you're telling them the latest information about your experience and what it includes. Any licensing. So if you're dealing with food and drink and preparing it and making it, you need to speak to Cotswold District or Tewkesbury District or West Oxfordshire District Councils and just check that they're happy with doing those things. If you're dealing with food, basically, putting together a picnic or something like that, and you're not actually making or preparing the food, you won't need to have that license, but you will need to have a food hygiene certificate because it's all about how you look after and store that food during the experience. You can do that through a Google search, do food hygiene certificate. It's about £20, £30. You can do that. You can pop it on your website and you can tell visitors that you have that as well. If you're thinking about transporting guests, picking them up from the station or the airport or those kind of things like that, you probably will need a taxi license in order to do that. It's not just that simple that you can go and transport people. So do look into that, speak to your district council. Also, when you sign up to any online travel agent, an OTA, please make sure that you read all the terms and conditions and you really understand it as well, and arrange a Zoom call, a phone call with these companies, so you can ask those questions as well. Now, don't worry if you are signed up and you feel it's not working for you. As long as you've honoured all the different bookings that you might have, you can come off them. There is flexibility around that. You're not paying some big, well, you shouldn't be paying some big upfront fee. You are doing it through bookings, and if it's not working for you or you don't like the particular site that you're working with, then you can come off it as well, as long as you've honoured all those bookings. Think about your markets and your audiences and your segments. Think about who you're trying to attract and think about where those visitors go to book. Have that pricing plan that includes those commissions and service fees. Think about them now, not later. And really importantly, have that availability, because that availability will be your visibility for your experiences. I think I'm going to hand back to Sally now, and I think we'll go into any questions.
Thank you, Chris, because I know that's a huge task to just sort of constantly talk. So yes, we'll give you some time to have a quick drink there. And I'm going to stop the recording so that everybody can feel that they can ask questions. So I'm stopping the recording now.